What's a rule at grandma's house that made no sense until you were older? So growing up, I spent a lot of weekends at my grandma Edith's house. It was this cute little brick home with these weird floral curtains everywhere, and it always smelled like cinnamon rolls. My parents would drop me off Friday nights and pick me up Sunday afternoons. This was like our routine since I was maybe 6 or 7, I think. Anyway, grandma had this one rule that was super strict. Never ever open the second drawer in the dining room hutch. Like not even a peek. The hutch was this massive dark wood thing with glass doors on top where she kept her fancy dishes and these little ceramic birds she collected. The bottom had 4 drawers and the second one from the top was absolutely forbidden. If you even walked near that hutch too slowly, she'd be like, "Amber, what are you doing over there?" in this voice that wasn't exactly angry but definitely meant business. One time when I was like 8, I was just getting a napkin from the top drawer and she literally dropped a mixing bowl in the kitchen and came running in. And here's the thing. The rest of grandma's house had basically no rules. Want ice cream before dinner? Sure. Jump on the bed? Whatever. Stay up till midnight watching scary movies? Fine by her. But that second drawer was like federal crime territory. Of course, this made me and my cousin Erica obsessed with what could possibly be in there. We would make up these crazy stories about it. Like maybe grandma was secretly a spy during the war and had classified documents. Or maybe it was full of cash, or blackmail photos of the neighbor's LMAO. One summer when I was 12, Erica dared me to open it when grandma went to get groceries, but I chickened out. The rule was so ingrained in me by that point, I literally couldn't make my hand touch the handle. I asked my mom about it once when I was like 14, and she just said, "That's grandma's private drawer, honey. Everyone deserves their privacy," which obviously made it seem even more mysterious. Fast forward to now. Grandma passed away 3 months ago at 91. She had a good long life, but we're all still pretty heartbroken about it. She left her house to my mom, and we've been slowly going through everything, deciding what to keep, what to donate, etc. Yesterday we were working on the dining room, and my mom was like, "I guess we should finally look in the infamous drawer." My heart literally started racing. After all these years, I was finally gonna know what was in there. Mom opened it, and inside was just a bunch of recipe cards, like hundreds of them, handwritten on these old yellowed index cards. I was so confused. This was the big secret? Recipe cards? WTF, grandma. My mom started going through them, and at first we were just laughing about how anticlimactic it was. But then mom got really quiet and was staring at this one card. It wasn't a recipe. It was a letter. Turns out the recipe cards were a cover. Behind them was a false bottom to the drawer. And underneath that were letters. Dozens and dozens of letters. They were all from a man named Henry. The first one started in 1954, when grandma was 24. They were love letters at first, but they got darker as they went on. The last few were straight up threatening. Mom was reading them silently, and her face kept getting paler. Finally, she handed me one from 1956, where this Henry guy was saying stuff like he knew grandma was hiding with his baby, my mom, and that he would find them eventually. We stayed up until 3 a.m. reading through everything, putting together the pieces. The full story was that Henry was my biological grandfather, not the man I knew as grandpa, Chris. Apparently Henry had been abusive to grandma, and when mom was just a baby, grandma fled with her to another state. She met Chris a year later, they got married, and he adopted my mom. Henry spent years trying to find them. The letters spanned decades. The last one was from 1992, when I was already born. In that one, Henry said he'd seen a birth announcement for me in the paper. They used to print those back then. And figured out where we all lived. That's when we found the restraining order paperwork. And a small handgun with a permit dated 1993. And newspaper clippings about domestic violence cases in the 50s. Including one about a woman who had been killed by her ex-husband after he tracked her down. There was also a journal where grandma wrote about her constant fear that Henry would find us. She wrote about installing extra locks, about checking every car that drove by too slowly, about practicing with the gun at a range. She wrote about how she could never fully relax, even decades later, because she knew Henry was still looking. The most recent entry was from just last year, where she wrote that even though Henry was probably dead by now, he'd be in his 90s. She still sometimes woke up in the middle of the night thinking she heard him at the door.